"Hey, want to stick your finger in my eye hole?" was the first thing Potato Boy ever said to me. I was so taken aback by the request that I accidentally dared to. He winked at me invitingly, and in went my finger. And just like that, we were friends. I spent the next few days sitting next to Potato Boy in class, wondering why we called him Potato Boy. He never introduced himself as such. Come to think of it, he never introduced himself at all. One day, he just sat there, and we all accepted it. Could it be the bumpy nature of his bald head, or his brown complexion, or the satisfying way his skin peeled back when we cut him with knives? Perhaps the dirty yellow color of his blood. Maybe it was the alluring color of his misshapen skull cavities. "Jenny!" Mrs. Tomlinson's stern voice snapped me back to reality. "Sorry, Mrs. Tomlinson," quickly withdrew my finger, hanging my head in shame. "Don't put your fingers in Potato Boy's ear hole." "I don't mind at all," Potato Boy croaked happily. Things only took a turn for weirder after that. More and more Potato Boys appeared at our school, and soon enough, you'd find a Potato Boy in every class. There'd be a slight difference in their appearance, though. So you know which Potato Boy you're referring to? Half-bump Potato Boy was in Hannah's class. He had this crooked head, a sort of Indian half-bump at the neck. No-faced Potato Boy was in the class over me. A deep fissure in the middle of his mug, hitting all of his facial features. Our Potato Boy was the one that talked. The rest of them were silent as the grave. Little bit of shambling roots, mindless and harmless. Our Potato Boy was different. He was aware of us. "I am so happy to be alive, Jenny," he'd tell me. "It's a great thing, living." Weeks turned to months, and the Potato Boys were changing. At first it was almost unnoticeable, just slight changes to the bizarre physique, but as time passed, it became impossible to ignore. The smell, a pungent stench followed them wherever they went. A foul liquid dripping from their rotting faces. Deep ponds of the stuff found all over school. Our Potato Boy started choking on the worms and parasites slowly consuming him from the inside. "It was good," he croaked, "to be alive." And one day, they all just collapsed, liquefied instantaneously in the middle of our math exam. Pooled around disgusting sludge crawling with repugnant vermin. All that was left of them. Mourning the loss, we sat down in a hard circle around Potato Boy's putrid remnant, and mouthful by mouthful, we consumed him. We never talked about Potato Boy again. It was like he never existed. But some days, like today, I remember and I'll feel all happy and warm inside. It is good to be alive. "God, he's so annoying," an exasperated Jen shouted out loud, now that she was finally alone in her car. She thought back to the political science class she just left and felt her anger start to boil over her again. Nick was just an awful human being. It was obvious to everyone in class, but somehow the professor couldn't see it. She gripped the steering wheel and tried her best to calm down, but she couldn't help it. Nick was so damn cocky, acting like he was too smart for a 101 poli-sci class. Always talking about what he'd read on Voodoo's that morning. But he genuinely liked acting like an overprivileged asshole, name-dropping what congressman he'd run into at his father's fundraiser gala the previous weekend. Jen was fed up, tired of his attitude, his constant hijacking of the professor's attention, and his derailing of the class lectures. She was paying hard-earned money for that class, and he was stealing her time with whatever fanciful thought floated into his rich little head that day. Multiple times that Jen had booked office hours with her professor, she'd show and see Nick already in his office with that damn George Stephanopoulos coffee mug, yucking it up about international trade or basically anything that wasn't even on the syllabus. And her whole study group felt the same way. She knew that. They allowed the first inmates of Studytown just to vent about how much of a prick Nick was. I mean, I know the whole class hates him, she told herself, but they are all thinking me for us. So she put her car in reverse and ran over him again. There you are, acting like everything is fine, smiling and laughing, and getting attention from everyone like you always do. Well, I'm coming for you. Can't treat me this way anymore. I was happy before you, and I'll be happy when you're gone. I loved her from the moment I met her, and she loved me too. I know she did. Everyone knew she did. They all commented on how sweet our bond was. I loved her, protected her, and watched her grow into what she is now, a monster. The first moment she hit me in the face, I was startled. There were others around, but nobody seemed to notice. It wasn't too hard, but it still hurts. She laughed about it. And then it started to become more frequent. She'd yell at me and hit me. And when I'd yell back at her, she'd start to cry. Everyone would take her side and blame me. She'd hit me while I slept, while I ate. In the end, she would openly yell at me and hit me, not caring who was around to see it. Well, no more. We are alone now. She's making her way towards me. I can feel the rage pounding in my chest as she nears. She doesn't know what's about to happen, but she's driven me to. I'm not backing away this time. I move towards her to show that I'm not scared anymore. I think she's realized. BBC News. Dog euthanized and a couple arrested after a 1-year-old mauled to death while parents were in the garden with gas. Amy was only trying to help. Money was tight and Caleb was struggling to get hours. So Amy applied. She applied anyway, even though her resume was a ghost, stitched together from dead experiences. The cafe called back. Caleb was the one to answer, sitting in the shaded living room, smoking and drinking, staring at the TV. He told the caller there was a mistake. My wife isn't looking for work, he said. A man provides. That was the first time Caleb put hands on Amy. The kids watched from the stairs. After, Caleb was kind. He came back from the kitchen with eyes wrapped in old blue washcloths. I'm sorry, he told Amy. Don't go looking for work anymore. I'll take care of us. A man provides. Amy's face was bruised blank. She didn't look at Caleb, only the silhouettes of the kids. Their small hands gripped the rail, and their young faces looked so old. Amy put them to bed, then went out to the yard to watch the stars, found her jackets, and the night was cold and infinite. When the first blur of orange announced sunrise, Amy went inside. That was the day Kat moved in across the street. She sat in her lawn chair, watching the movers drift from truck to house. In her wide-brimmed hat and white sundress, Kat looked like a portrait. So Amy drew Kat, sketched her in charcoal. Not long after, Amy visited her neighbor with a large red Tupperware container full of fresh-baked cookies. They were friends right away. Kat was the one who encouraged Amy to sell artwork online. Amy wouldn't even have to leave the house, just draw. She was so proud of her first commission, so excited to tell Caleb. He put Amy in the hospital that night, fists and yelling and bloodshot eyes. A man provides, Caleb said. Try to shame me again, and I'll make sure the kids find whatever's after you. Try me. Kat was the only person to visit Amy in the hospital after the car accidents. The kids will be next, Kat said. He won't stop or get better. Your husband is a child of a man, hungry and hurtful, but who have friends. They stayed up together talking through the night. Amy was especially kind towards Caleb. Once he was back home, she cooked all of his favorite meals. He felt practically stuffed. I'm sorry, he told Amy that night, sipping the drink she brought him. I wish you didn't make me act that way. All I want is for the family to be looked after, happy and all. Caleb was groggy. The room went fuzzy before he finished his whiskey. When Caleb woke up, there was an ache in his head and ropes all around him. Naked, he was tied to the table. Amy and Kat approached him with long, clever knives and calm eyes. A man provides, Kat whispered, one way or another. Jack started as a joke among us. When our dear classmate, Ray for short, moved out of town at the start of high school, we considered Ray had been replaced by a new student, Jack. We kept Ray's desk empty and pretended it was Jack since then. Jack had been constant entertainment for us in all kinds of situations. When someone accidentally fell off his chair, we would jokingly blame it on Jack for pulling the chair out and we all would laugh about it. When someone cracked out a bad joke and nobody laughed, we would say, hey, at least Jack laughed. The joke went on and escalated up to a point where we all agreed to draw portraits of Jack in our class. For a good 10 minutes, we sat and drew Jack's portrait from our imagination, all the while pretending we can actually see Jack sitting at his desk, laughing and scolding him for not sitting still, until Hayden suddenly sharp and shouted, "Finished!" We all came around to look at his first portrait of Jack. From what we saw, Hayden is obviously an untalented artist. His portrait of Jack was simple as a portrait can be. 2 black dots for eyes, a triangular nose, and a stupidly wide grin across the rugby-shaped face. According to Hayden's interpretation, Jack had no eyebrows, no ears, and little to no hair. In short, it looks like a badly drawn cartoon character by a 7-year-old. Hey man, that's awesome. It looks exactly like Jack. Robert was the first to jokingly compliment Hayden's drawing. We all then joined in to jest and praised Hayden for his accurate portraits. Since then, it's decided how Jack looks like, and we hung the portrait proudly at the back of the classroom. Until one morning, we all came into class together and saw a curious figure sitting at Jack's desk. It was an especially dark morning. It wasn't raining, but it was too cloudy for us to see the figure clearly. Upon flickering on the lights, we all fell silent. The figure sitting in Jack's seat was none other than Jack, his face the exact copy of Hayden's drawing. We didn't move an inch until the teacher came and scolded us. Then we all shuffled to our seats, trembling. Thud. Jack pulled Hayden's chair, and he fell to the floor. Jack laughed and laughed with a voice so throaty and horrendous. It immediately made our faces crumpled in fear. Some were even in tears, but the teacher didn't seem to take notice. It struck us. Only those who played along with the joke can see and hear him. That day, we learned to never pretend that someone is real when they're not. But it's too late. Jack is now real, and he never left his seat. He was there when the class ended, and he was there to greet us in the morning. He's a classmate now. A couple of months ago, I received a light thread letter. This is what the light thread letter read as followed. I'm going to bring you back to life where you'll be forced to pay for bills constantly. Bills like water bills, electricity bills, energy bills, food bills, rent bills, and bills just to stay alive. I will force you back to life where you'll be drowning in debt with bills. As I read that, I couldn't believe that I was dead, because only people that are alive receive death threats, and so logically, people that are dead must receive life threats. To be forced back into life, where I must do all the things living people do, was nauseating and made me tremble. Why would this stranger be so cruel as to bring me back to life, and back into the rat race? Then I received the following life thread letter, and it read as followed. I am going to bring you back to life where you'll be forced to get a soulless job that you will hate. where we'll work with a terrible manager and with equally depressed but nice co-workers, because they too will be in the same situation as you are. You will get up in the morning feeling like a weights are on top of your body. You'll be dreading all the times you're on your days off, as you'll be constantly worrying about the work. The commute to work and back will be just as horrible. I will enjoy bringing you back to life. Start to shout and cry at the thought of being brought back to life. Why would this horrid person do such a thing to me? Why can't he just let me rest in peace? Then another letter came to me, and it read, I will bring you back to life, and you'll be among shallow and fake people. You will go to parties that will increase your anxiety, and you will be among people who will force and pressure you to live a certain way of life. They will make you feel horrible about yourself. Couldn't take it anymore. I was trapped. Then, at the last minute, this person sent me another letter, which read, Sorry, I accidentally sent you a life threat letter, and it was supposed to be a death threat letter. I am going to murder you and then feed you to the dogs. I was so relieved and happy that instead of this person bringing us to life to the rat race of life, he is instead going to help me escape it. For most of my life, people have remarked on my luck. It started when I was born. 18 weeks ahead of schedule, the doctors gave my parents grim odds. Just a 9% chance of survival. But here I am. Then there was the accidents. I remember the accidents vaguely. It happened so quickly. A drunk driver T-boned our family station wagon, impacting against the back seat. My family were badly injured, but they survived. The emergency responders on the scene thought they were working to retrieve my corpse from the steel flower of carnage unfolding before them. They grimly assured my wailing parents there was no chance I survived, and my death had been quick and painless. But here I am. Physical therapy was hard, and I was a depressed teen. Got a hold of my dad's gun, and felt the increasingly perplexing hollow clicks of misfire after misfire before my mother found me. Decades passed, with more miracles, more luck, more recovery. Then came the cancer diagnosis. Aggressive, late stage, metastasizing. I was given a handful of months to live, and chose to undergo treatment to squeeze out as much as I could from the scant grains of sand left in my hourglass. That was 23 years ago. They called me lucky at first, but that quickly passed. You see, the cancer never went into remission. Both traitors cells in my body and the poisons I took to battle them rode roughshod over me. But here I am. After a year and a half, I opted to end my treatments and was moved to hospice. I had made peace with death and wanted to go out in dignity. But here I am. I was eventually moved back home with a full-time caregiver 4 years into his tenure. He took pity on me. He told me he was giving me enough morphine to kill an elephant. But here I am. Are you familiar with the concept of quantum immortality? It's an aspect of many-world interpretation of quantum mechanics. Basically, it posits that subjectivity, we are all immortal, as parallel universes branch off into infinity. Our subjective consciousness experience will always persist down the path in which we survive, no matter how unlikely. I wonder sometimes, how many versions of me are out there in the universe? How many happy, full lives are being lived? I also think about how many times those happy, full lives will come to a peaceful end. But peaceful ends are not something one experiences. Agony, loss, desperation, those are experiences. I mostly wonder just how lucky I can get. How many years, days, seconds before one more beat of my heart actually becomes impossible. Will I live to be 100, 200, 1,000? Will my consciousness continue on for eternity as I draw a ragged, miserable breath, Those are questions I ask myself in my deep, dark, sleepless nights. So, my friend, should you?